What's the deal? What's the deal? Sub 305 Capricorn. Now I haven't did a Q&A session for I don't know how long, so I thought I'd knock one out real quick. Why not, right? Because everyone has questions. So before anyone starts asking questions, I'll go down, kind of just what I sense internally, by me being amongst everything that's happening, at least on my side of town in my city, the West Coast. So from my observations, I guess the first question is how have I been? Been cooling, you know, taking it easy, studying honestly. Like I'm trying to keep my composure here. I just want to go off and really talk about some wickedness. I'm trying to stay civilized, at least now. But research. If I'm not doing videos, I'm doing research. If I'm not doing research, I'm doing experimentation. So for the time I've been gone, I've been conducting experiments, which at some point I'm going to compile into a book. Right? I'm going to compile it into a book. So that's really, it's like I'm working on a book, but I guess if you're really trying to make a mark, you really have to take time and thoroughly bring together the knowledge. So that's what I'm doing. So I read books, but I understand that all things are not found in books. So that's when I work with spirits. I gave my direct experience on my website, asharenu.com, for those who want to know my personal way of how I connect with spirits. You can find that video on the website. So I understand books are not everything. So then you have to go to actual experience. But you may not be able to gain everything from actual experience. So you have to go to the spirits. The spirits, essentially, I don't want to spook anybody out, is basically you activating various centers of the brain. All centers of the brain can be broken down to a particular deity or spirit. So when you desire to activate a particular aspect of the brain, then we can understand spirits. Now you have other people who look at spirits as something that is outside of self. You may have the spirit of the mountains, you may have the spirit of the water, spirit of the fire, spirit of the earth, so on and so forth. But we are all the elements. So therefore, even if you're working with the spirit of fire, we have fire within. Even if you're working with the spirit of water, we are mostly water. Even if you're working with the spirit of air, we are constantly breathing in air and breathing out carbon dioxide, breathing in oxygen, breathing out carbon dioxide. And of course, we are composed of earth. So it don't matter what spirit you work with, you can bring them back to the human vessel. I, self, law, and master. We are the center of the universe. The spirits are here to assist us in our growth and development, which is why in modern times, modern times does not want to acknowledge the ancient religion. Modern times does not want to acknowledge alchemy. They don't want to acknowledge anything of a spiritual nature because they deem it new age or pseudoscience because it doesn't follow the scientific method. The scientific method which has been laid down, by those who have come before us. But just because something doesn't follow the scientific method doesn't mean it's invalid. And because that does not invalidate its reality, when we base our reality on a scientific method or something that has been conceived in the mind of man. And we base our whole reality off of this conception of another man who is also a student, just like we are. Then we see where the problem lies. So anything outside of that structure is deemed pseudoscience. So sciences such as astrology is considered pseudoscience. Numerology is considered pseudoscience, right? The very science, synchronicity, all the things that we clearly see in everyday life is pseudoscience. The living arts, the living science, the real science is pseudoscience, right? You see that right there? That's a number. That's numerology. I don't have to go into, house numbers, right? That's numerology. That changes the environment of this room depending on what number I put up there. It has an effect why I have tested this out for years. I've been testing out numerology, house numbers for years. So I know the degree of every single number because I've been doing it for so long, which is why I still do it to this day. However, it's still considered pseudoscience, technically. Only if you have the magic eyes can you see it, not physically see it. Anybody can walk into this room and see this. Doesn't mean that they understand it. You know what I mean? They may see it. We see a lot of things every single day, but they don't register to the brain because the brain doesn't understand what it means, right? But someone just asked me a question. Can you briefly speak on the shift that's coming in 2020? It's not necessarily a shift in the sense of, for example, let me just use the most common example. Just like they were saying it was a 2012 shift, we understand that it wasn't just about the year 2012. It was about an overall shift of consciousness. But that shift of consciousness isn't really a shift of consciousness. It was just to awaken those who had the seeds already planted within them. I just spoke about this the last live stream I did right before this one, in terms of how we have been predestined to be here at this time to receive the downloads, right? So for those who received the first wave of downloads, the whole 2012, the purpose of that, for those who don't understand that, many people do not because they have not studied this deeply. You know what I mean? You literally have to give up your entire life to truly understand these sciences. So, the 2012 phenomena was to awaken. 2020, now it's time to put in that work. Now that you know who you are, now that you know what you're capable of, now that you know where you come from and where you're going, 2012 laid down the foundations. 2012 laid down where you should be going in the future. That's what 2012 laid down. So because 2012 laid down the blueprint, 2020, which is essentially a decade later, just about a decade later, now that we had about 10 years, 8 to 10 years, I know time goes fast, so it may not seem like that, but we didn't had about 8 to 10 years to meditate upon everything that has been received. We've had plenty of time to reflect on it. For those who are the true students, of course. For other people, it's just fads. For other people, they just come and go, they come and go, they come and go. They never established the foundation here. Why? I'll tell you why. Because you have to root yourself in this lifestyle. Most people don't know this because, again, who's really going to, unless you give up everything, you're not going to really fully comprehend. So let me tell you, for those who don't understand, the purpose of the seed being planted within you to awaken in 2012 is so by 2020, you don't just know who you are. You should know that already. You don't just know what you're capable of. You know that already. You know about clairvoyance, your psychic ability. All that was 2012. Anything new age. Before it was a new age, it was a new thought movement. For those who, with the Napoleon Hill, Think and Grow Rich, early 20th century. Before it was New Age was like officially the 70s, right? That's when the information became big for those who did the history. You know, the 70s was huge for the New Age information. Before that, and what I mean by New Age is Eastern mysticism. You know, that's why, you know, the chakras, you know, the knowledge from India, the knowledge from Tibet, so on and so forth. Those type of sciences came to the West via Helena Blavatsky. So she was one of the first European women who went to the East alone and studied under the tutelage of the yogis. They revealed to her the secrets, and she came back to the West and laid that information down. Right? So therefore, 2020, now that you know the roots, but maybe you don't know, because all the information that was released in 2012 and you know before and after, all of this information has a source. That's the point. All of this information that has been revealed has a source. It has an author. The purpose of this information coming out was for you to discover and for all of us to discover, where does this information come from? Who are the originators? Who was the first to be speaking about this so-called new age, new thought, transcendental? Because before it was new thought, it was transcendental, the transcendental movement. Again, for those who have done the history, you know. So it has been a continuous wave of this so-called information that is more intangible than tangible, but it doesn't leave you in with the tangible. So therefore, we understand 2020 is us not coming into the realization of the power, but to discover the root. Because when you discover the root, when you know where it comes from, you don't have to deal with all of the nonsense that has been placed on top of it. What do I mean? If you, let's just say, if you read a book now, let's just say about clairvoyance, about psychic ability, psychic power, success, if you read books now from authors now, it's just the essence is not there. The essence is not there. Because most of the time, these people don't even know the roots of the information that they speak on, unless they are really researchers like that. When most of them are, author may not be a researcher. They may be a researcher, they may not. It all depends. You know what I mean? Anybody can write a book. As long as the book is original information, it can get copyrighted. As long as you're not taking anybody else's information, anybody could put out a book, as long as it comes from within them. Because of that, we understand that most people don't know the root of this information. So they're just repeating what they have heard. They have not linked themselves to the root. And because they have not linked themselves to the root, we see why there's so much confusion, because nobody is rooted. It's like everyone is floating around in space, where it's not enough of us rooted on the physical plane. You see too many people floating, fucking astral traveling and shit, basically. And again, excuse the language, but it's just a reality. It's just too many people have no foundation, no root. That's why the information just seems so scattered. Everybody is just doing whatever it is. It just seems like it's chaos. But that's just the nature of the yin energy. Spiritual energy is yin energy, or feminine energy, which is chaotic. You ground yourself with the masculine energy. Masculine energy weighs you down, feminine energy rises you up. It's just polarity. So if majority of the people is on this yin frequency, feminine frequency, nothing wrong with feminine energy or the frequency, but this is why it has to be balanced out with the masculine. This is what makes us holistic. So you may start off with the yin, but you must ground yourself with the yang. Because people have not got to that level where they can ground themselves with the yang, then we understand where we are. You must ground yourself with the yang. But how do you do that? You have to root yourself. You have to link your back to the original information and the way that it came out when it was originally released to the public, versus someone else writing about it and they don't know anything about the origin. Because when you read the original works, a lot of these works may be in different languages. So you read it transliterations, right? You're gonna read a transliteration of an ancient. Hey, relax, relax. You're gonna read an ancient transliteration of a book. Because of that, we understand that if you have not linked yourself to the root, then you're gonna have a hard time truly understanding what this knowledge is about. Because it's too much other stuff going on right now. Link yourself and root yourself, right? Exactly. A lot of the important books we need are from the 1800s, mostly out of print. That's not an accident. That's not an accident. You know what I mean? Because again, that's where the root is. It may be in a different language. So you see, depending on how far you have studied, will determine how far you're going to go. So when 2020 hits, you're going to be right in position to benefit because you have put in that proper work. That's why I'm making the videos now. You still got time. For those who may not understand it, if you didn't understand it before this point, you in it now. Now you know what to do. Now you know where to go. So when 2020 hits, now you know where to go from here. And again, that was the purpose of the video I did before. Now let me go back to the. Someone asked another question. Any spells for court? Not just off the top of the dome. No, like I don't just keep that just locked into my mind. But if you need guidance to where to go to for the people that do that, that's what Palo Mayombe is for. So if you truly want those type of secrets, those type of arts, then you have to study dark magic, black magic. You got to open yourself up to forces that are chaotic. See, this is the thing. Because someone also said, how do I unlock the Satan within me? Well, you have to understand what Satan is. It's not what you think. So let's get into that though. So let me close this door, right? Hey, close the door for me, okay? Close the door.
Okay, good.
We have to get a little technical right now. Satan is more of a feminine energy. Right? You want some of this? Satan is more of a feminine energy, right? When we think about Satan, Baphomet, Lucifer, so on and so forth, when we think about most of the time we think about masculine energy, right? Because we think about masculine energy when we think about the devil, we negate the feminine principle that you have to link with that. That's why when you study the imagery of the Baphomet, you see, everybody has seen the image of the Baphomet. It's a masculine and a feminine principle. Most of the time, however, we don't really acknowledge the feminine principle when it comes to the devil. We talk about Satan, Baphomet, Lucifer, so on and so forth. This is just a combination of the masculine and the feminine principle merging. So to answer the question, how do you unlock your Satan? This is the combination of the masculine and the feminine principles, exactly what I've been talking about the entire time. The feminine energy releases you from your bondage. The masculine energy then roots you in your new reality. So you must free yourself with the chaos. Free yourself with the chaos from your current reality, then root yourself with the masculine energy, with the new reality. That's what it means to be satanic or demonic, so on and so forth. That's what all that means, without all of the fluffiness, without all of the extraness. All right? But this is why I'm here, to give you the reality of things. Hey. Just to give you the reality of things and not mislead you and take you to paths that will harm you. Because I done already been there. Again, trial and error. Sometimes you're gonna bump your head before you realize what's right and what's wrong. So through a lot of trial and error, that's what I realized when it comes to the demonic energy or the satanic energy is a fusion. This is alchemy, the ancient art of alchemy from older times revitalized for modern society for those who can link the two together. All right. Yeah, exactly. Release yourself with the feminine, ground yourself with the masculine. You see, just it's basic concepts. But I guaranteed I'm probably the first one to ever say that. I'm not the first person to practice alchemy, but it gives you a personal concept of what everything really is. And this is what I mean when you really dedicate yourself to these sciences, you start to see it for what it really is and not for what we think it is with a religious connotation on it. And we don't get trapped into all this Illuminati talk, all this government talk, the powers that be. I don't really talk about any of that stuff here because that takes you away from who and what you are and what you're capable of if you're constantly thinking about what someone is going to take from you or what somebody can do to you or they can run up in my house and shoot me and do all this. Yeah, if you don't see yourself as a divine being making a video.
We can theory though.
What are you doing?
Nothing.
So we understand that it's easy to not be rooted and grounded in this information because it's not the easiest thing to do. Because you have to really release yourself from bondage, as we said, and you have to ground yourself. And this is what I mean. Most people have released themselves, but they have not grounded themselves, right? Most people have unrooted themselves from society, whatever, whatever, but then they're just kind of floating around. They never brought themselves back down. And this is what I mean by it could be a lot of factors that go into that. You know, it can just be just too much feminine energy. I'm not going to say too much feminine energy. That aspect has been pushed harder than the masculine. And because the feminine is being pushed harder than the masculine, it creates an imbalance. And this is what I mean by, again, everyone has information, but information is not knowledge. Information is not power. Information can be, you know, it can take you all over the place. We aren't practicing enough. Well, some people, you know, you got this whole thing nowadays with, what is it called? Toxic masculinity, right? You got this whole thing with toxic masculinity. Well, some people say we are using too much masculine energy. Then you got some people that are using too much. Either way, whether you say it's abundance of feminine or it's an abundance of masculine, there's still a need for balance. But that is the ultimate science of alchemy. That's what I've been talking about for years, the combination of the feminine and the masculine. So that's why on some videos you see me like I may have my nails painted black. I may paint my nails black. You know what I mean? I may take the shirt off. You know what I mean? You can see me. You may see me in any type of form. Crown on, crown off. Mask on, mask off. You know what I mean? Because it's alchemy. Always coming with a different type of style, different type of flow. Why? Because this is supposed to advance you. Anybody who has been watching this channel for years has seen advancement, seen how different things are depending on where I am currently. Right? Is that why pimping is so powerful? Because it's both masculine and feminine. Feminine, I'm trying to say two words at once. Pimping is just a subset of alchemy. That's what that really is. So you have alchemy, which is the supreme science. Then you have pimping, hoeing. You know, you got various degrees of alchemy. But you can say, yeah, one of the highest you can say is a pimping or the hoeing, which is why they are what they are. Meaning, you know what a pimp is, you know what a hoe is because of their physicality. because they're not people who's just floating around. Now, yes, you do have, men and women who do float around, but if you see a pimp or a hoe for what they truly are, they represent success, not just mentally, but physically. Their minds are open, and because their minds are open, they were able to solidify themselves physically to have nice things, to live in luxury. So, the risk, how is if, as the pimp, if you get snitched on by your woman, most of the time that happens when um when you don't treat your woman properly, right? If you don't treat your woman properly, then you will end up in a jail cell because the feminine energy must be respected. For the feminine energy, if you don't treat the masculine energy correct, then it's not going to be around too long. So even in the underworld, because again, I didn't spoke so much about pimping, I didn't spoke so much about the underworld. You know what I mean? I didn't. It's all solidified already. The powers must be respected. The pimp must respect the hoe must respect the pimp. And again, don't get really caught up with the lingo. It's lingo, right? There's many different words and titles for this thing. But yes, this is why the underworld or the underground is as powerful as it is because it deals with demonic spirits or satanic, whatever the dark arts, the black arts. It's all alchemy, pimping, hoeing, alchemy, drug dealing, street activity is alchemy if you are successful. Alchemy, because there's pimps, hoes who never went to jail, drug dealers, there's a lot, majority of them go to jail, but very few of them don't. And the few that don't were students of alchemy, which is the real science that predates whatever they're doing. So when you become a student of alchemy, even if you started off as a drug dealer, the pimp, the hustler, the con artist, or whoever, just a regular person working a regular job, when you come into the art form of alchemy, then it enhances everything that you do because it changes you from the inside out. And there's not really too much things that can rival that, right? There's not too many things that can rival alchemy because it predates all stuff. I don't think there's anything that can rival alchemy, honestly, because alchemy can take so many different forms. That's the thing about alchemy. Alchemy is everywhere. Christianity, Gnosticism, Islam with not with Islam with alchemy becomes Sufism. Judaism with alchemy becomes Kabbalah, right? This is what alchemy is. Very swift and changeable. So alchemy can take on whatever form or whatever body. Alchemy can animate whatever vessel that you place before it. That's what makes it the supreme science, right? That's what makes it the supreme science because it can be integrated into anything that you do. It's not too many other things that does that. Anything that you're doing, alchemy, the study of alchemy, the practice of alchemy will enhance whatever it is that you're doing. And you can claim whatever you want to claim. You don't have to walk around and say you're an alchemist, you're a metaphysician, you know what I mean? Because alchemy was never about the titles. If you watch old movies about alchemy, most of the alchemists were unknown. See, this is how I know it to be the real science. If you want to know my opinion, most alchemists were unknown. These were not people seeking after fame. These were not people seeking after wealth, even though they had wealth because they understood the science. But these were not people in the public eye. They were not public figures. Public figures. Some of them were, but many of them were not. Right? Because they were not to fame, to fortune, to popularity, all the things that everybody cares about now. Alchemy was never about any of that. It was always about the alternative sciences, the real science, because it predates all this other stuff. So before people cared about being demons, being this, being that, all this stuff that we care about now, alchemy was already there. And as alchemy became more and more diluted, now we care about all of the stuff that doesn't lead us anywhere but in circles. Again, either you have people that's strictly feminine or people that's strictly masculine. You got people that's strictly of this world and for this world. And you got people who just says F this reality and I'm not existing in it. And you know what I mean? And whatever they take, whatever comes with that. So we have some other questions before we check. Um, you have to make a new video on the law of attraction. That stuff shifts constantly. I'm not sure what you mean by that. The law of attraction is the law of attraction. It doesn't change. It doesn't shift. The only thing that shifts is the people. It's the people that shift, not the science itself. Right? It's the people that shift. So for example, I know because my most popular video I did, I guess back in 2014, talking about how to manifest instantly, right? So if I look at, okay, what if I was to make that video now? How would I go about explaining that? Would I explain it differently, what, 4 or 5 years later? Absolutely. Not that the law changed, but I changed. My understanding has grown. So if I was to make that video again, it's not the law that changed, it's me that changed. My understanding got more in depth. So that's what I mean. So when it comes to anything, law of attraction, law of polarity, any law, the seven hermetic laws, the universal laws, they don't change. We change as we gain more understanding of the law. So as you gain more understanding of the law, you will change. Your knowledge, wisdom, and understanding of the law will change, but the law remains the same. We just perceive it with different degrees depending on what degree you're on. That's all it is. Depending on what your base is, depending on what your foundation is, will determine how much you see. So that's what that is, where we at. Do you think a new religion will ever arise that will be as popular as Christianity? Absolutely, because Christianity hasn't always been here, right? There's all types of stuff going on prior to Christianity for those who don't know history. Things such as Buddhism predates Christianity, and we know alchemy predates Christianity. Christianity or any mainstream religion, because I believe Islam is actually bigger than Christianity. There's more Muslims than Christians in the world. I believe that's a fact. There's more. So when it comes to the three main religions, Christianity, Islam, and Judaism, those are the main three. All of those main three are predated by something else, something that's older. So that older religion, that older way of life, alchemy, although alchemy is not as popular, it never will be as popular, but it is older. And because it is older, that means once Christianity is gone, once people get over this idea of this fake Jesus, once that's finally eradicated, alchemy will still be here. Gnosticism will still be here. So it's really not about the popularity, it's more about the reality. Because once all these things pass, what remains? And when you can craft this in your mind, let's just say all three religions were destroyed simultaneously, what will remain? Let's just say everybody lost their Bibles, their Qurans, their Torahs, right? Nobody, they disappeared off the face of the earth. Nobody has access to the holy books anymore. What would be left? Well, for a lot of Muslims, they memorized the entire Quran. Okay, let me not say a lot. For those who have that mind, a lot of those who have that mind, memorize the Quran. So if they couldn't find it, there are people who know it by heart. I guess I should point to the heart. Not, there are people who know it by heart. So they just write another book. The Bible, not so much. It's not. I don't think it's a little harder to memorize that because it's a newer language. It's more complex versus the older languages. I'm pretty sure there's Jewish people who know the entire Torah. The older languages are easier to memorize than the newer languages. Again, how many people know the Bible by heart? It's a little different because it's newer. So it's not about popularity. It's just about what speaks to you. What speaks to you? I'm not telling anyone who is a Christian or a Muslim or Jewish, Hebrew. I'm not telling you got to change your religion because I'm not the person to do that. I'm only here to activate the senses of alchemy within the psychic senses. Be whatever you want to be. Claim whatever you want to claim. But implement alchemy into your practice. And that's what makes it legit because alchemy has the ability to be integrated into any way of life. And because alchemy can be integrated to any way of life, you don't have to change your way of life. You just become more intricate and more detailed about your way of life when you implement alchemy into the foundations because it's already there. So it's not something that you're trying to do on your own, it's already there. And the more you research and the more you see this living science and this living art is real, then you can see it. You can see the reality of it more. So it's already here. Alchemy is already in every religion, every way of life. Alchemy is already there. Hidden, silent, not speaking. But for those who can hear the silence, those who listen to the silence, the alchemy is everywhere because it is the oldest, also the newest. It predates us and it will outlive us. So just to answer that question there, how can we practice alchemy in our daily, regular lives? To understand that there's no such thing as a regular daily life. Lie is life. That doesn't that doesn't exist. There's no such thing as a daily regular life. Every day is unique. Every day has a unique energy signature. We just tend to think that way because we may be going to the same location every day at the same time, dealing with all types of people. So we may create the alternative reality in our mind because of the lifestyle. However, that's not the reality. So when it comes to the reality versus what we think, we have to make sure that they agree with each other. So, when you study numerology, when you study astrology, when you study the tarot, when you study all of these Moorish, sciences, hermetic sciences, all it does is open you up to a reality that has always been there. So your so-called regular life, once viewed with the alchemical eyes, becomes supernatural. So you can be working a job. There's nothing wrong with doing anything. That's why I say I'm not here to say what you should or should not be doing. This is just simply activate your alchemy within. Do whatever it is that you do, but activate the alchemy. Because when you activate the alchemy, which is already there within, then the ordinary becomes the supernatural. So it's just a process of knowing there are realities more vivid and more elaborate than what we can perceive with the physical eye. And that's why, it's so much information about the so-called third eye or the pineal gland or the DMT. Because the DMT is secreted when you dream. So dreams are a result of DMT being secreted by the pineal gland into the bloodstream. That's how we have dreams. Dreams have nothing to do with the physical eyes. They have everything to do with your memories. So if you can expand your memories, because we have the ancestral memory, but then you have the earthly memory. Most people never go past their earthly memory, meaning where you were born, the family you was born into, all the earthly things. But we have the ancestral knowledge or the Akashic knowledge, the Akashic records. This is also a part of our history. So when you are not limited to who you are, where you were born, all this stuff, you open yourself up to who you really are outside of the physicality, which is what alchemy is. You just open yourself up to who you really are versus who you think you are just because of the physical shell that you occupy or the family you was born into. That doesn't determine who you are. That just determines the vessel that you occupy. But we know that the body changes every 7 years. Every 7 years, you have an entirely new body. So every 7 years, your body is completely renewed. So even if you look like trash, you can look like trash because your diet is crazy and your thoughts is crazy. You can look absolutely messy. But if you start to implement the proper laws in 7 years, you can look like a supermodel. That is very possible. Why? Because people are not permanent. You can just look at a woman. Look at a woman who, the last time you saw her, let's just say she was 300 pounds. Then you saw her recently, she was half that. She was 150 pounds. It would probably be hard to recognize that woman, even though it's technically the same woman, but technically it isn't. It all depends on how you want to look at it. Because they say you are what you eat, right? Meaning what you eat becomes the building blocks of what your body is composed of, along with the blood. The blood is generated every time you breathe. Every time you breathe, it generates blood. Blood is generated by oxygen. So, 7 years, you can completely look different to the point where people don't even recognize you when you implement the laws. So people are not permanent. We are constantly changing. So we should never limit ourselves to our current reality because there is no such thing as solid matter. There's no such thing as solid or solidity. Everything is waves, vibration, frequency. Sound, vibration, frequency, right? We should know this. Sound, vibration, frequency, it generates life. If we can maintain that understanding, then you start to see things differently. Like there's no such thing as solid matter. Everything is vaporous. I've said it before. But then about it, if I said it before, I have to keep saying it till it sparks you in a way like, oh, this is actually realer than I thought it was. So I have to keep saying it. So next question. What's up, Anthony? Do you think smoking cannabis hinders someone from evolving or tapping them into the dream realm? I have heard people who smoke they have a harder time dreaming. I have heard that and I have experienced that firsthand. So this is why you have to build a dream altar. So yes, because of the chemical reactions of the marijuana or the cannabis, you know what I mean? It just has you moving in hyper speed, so it's harder for you to grasp your dreams. So you just need a little assistance. You have to create a dream altar. You have to help yourself to slow down and dream. Because again, if you're smoking, you're speeding yourself up. And even though you feel like you're toning down, you may feel calm, collected, and relaxed. But mentally, it speeds you up. I guess for those who are mentalists. So create a dream altar so that you can give yourself the proper energy needed to dream. You need energy to dream. You need energy to dream. So if you don't have the physical energy because of whatever you may be doing, then you have to utilize crystals. You have to utilize water. You have to utilize all types of. I got all types of tools. I don't even have to show them. But yes, create a dream altar. Assist yourself. Or, just take a break from smoking. Either way, either one works. Either take a break, create a dream altar, and try both. All right. I was in Atlanta and a woman in a spiritual store told me that wearing too much black can block opportunities. I was blind. A hemonite crystal for protection. I've been to Atlanta. And I must say that the spirituality in Atlanta is still young. Keep that in mind. Keep in mind that the spirituality is still young. Atlanta is not known to be a city that is well rooted in, you can say, new age philosophy. I'm not saying that the people don't know it, but if we're talking about historically, that's not now. Yes, Atlanta has its own separate history, so not taking away anything. But depending on where you are, will determine what information that you receive. Because if you can go to the West Coast, go to somewhere like LA, and you may hear something different. Or New York, go to New York, where most people wear black. You're going to see people wear black more than any other color in New York. So you go to New York and you tell them, oh, maybe you shouldn't wear black. It's going to block opportunities. But then you look around and you see 70% of the population is wearing black, and they're doing pretty well for themselves. So it depends on where you are, the type of information you receive. And yes, depending on where you are, will determine what type of energy you would need to tap into to increase your stability. This is what I learned when I traveled. The things that worked for me in Los Angeles didn't necessarily work in New York, didn't necessarily work in Atlanta, didn't necessarily work in Detroit, so on and so forth. Depending on where you are, you had to adapt to the environment and the atmosphere. So again, it's not about who's right, who's wrong. It's just about where you are. So I guess I can understand why someone in Atlanta would say that. But don't take that as an absolute. That may be the case in Atlanta. Yeah. If I think about Atlanta, I didn't see too many people wearing black. I was probably the only one wearing black, and motherfuckers just looking at me crazy. I guess they just, you know what I mean? It just depends on where you are. So I guess I can kind of see that because when I was in Atlanta, I had a lot of black. And they was looking at me like, yo, what are you doing? And I'm looking at them like, what are you doing? You know what I mean? Like that's just how it is. Like they looking at me like, well, I'm looking at like, why aren't you wearing black? You know what I mean? So it just depends on the culture that you're surrounded by, the type of information that you will receive, and also, you know what I mean. I don't recommend, you know, taking information from someone you don't trust. You know what I mean? You must trust the person that you receive information from. You have to know that they're authentic, and it's not easy to tell if a person is authentic just because you walk into their store or you just see them. You know what I mean? You gotta really spend some time with that person to really see where their mind is, to really see if how deep does their study goes. But you have to ask the right questions too, because when she said black blocks opportunities, then you have to say, well, how did you come to that conclusion? Point me to a reference so that I can study that reference and come to my own conclusion. And if they can't give you that reference, then you know you're dealing with a person who is not concerned with the well-being of their fellow citizen. Because why wouldn't you reveal that information, especially if you're speaking it? So either you're expecting a person to believe you on face value, or you're hiding something from them. Because I know for myself, I would never tell a person something and then they ask me, yo, how can I verify that? And I'm just gonna say, oh, just take my word for it. So you know what I mean? Even though, yes, take my word for it because I'm not gonna lie to you. Because I don't lie to myself. It ain't even about I'm just a righteous person. If you're not lying to yourself, then you're like, well, I'm not about to lie to nobody else. I don't have the time to create lies and have to back up those lies and back up those lies, and it just creates messiness. Don't have time for it. Because when you stand on the truth, when people come back to you, they're gonna be like, yo, I appreciate that. I appreciate when you gave me that jewel because it was rooted in truth. I did my own research. I saw that it was authentic. And I'm like, yeah, no, no. It is what it is, you know what I mean? Everyone has to go through that process of verifying the information. So that's why on my channel, I'm constantly throwing out names, whether it's Alistair Crowley, Helena Blavatsky. You know what I mean? I'll be throwing out names. I'm giving you historical references. I'm giving you time periods. I want to solidify this information for you so it isn't just scattered all over the place. So at least you can take something from it and you can be directed to the right source. Because again, there's many different paths. So my path may not be your path. There's 12 different paths. You can say, or 22. 12 paths, 22 paths. We all have our own path. So the more that I share my path, the more that you start to see what yours is, even if it's completely opposite to mine. All right, let me see, did I? Let me see, make sure I got everything. Is Lucifer more a feminine yin energy? The more I research, that's what I'm finding. Yeah, that's basically what I found as well. Lucifer is not strictly masculine at all because it's a older energy. If we're talking about Sutek, if we're talking about Set, if you want to take it back to Egypt, I did a whole video on Sutek, I believe last year. But anybody who's familiar with the whole Egyptian drama where Set kills Osiris and puts his body in the coffin, cuts him up to 14 pieces, so on and so forth. That's later Egypt. Originally, and again, if you want more information on that, just go back to the Sutek video. Originally, Sutek or Set, or the so-called devil in Egypt, originally was not an adversary. Originally, he was not associated with anything negative. Originally, Set helped Ra, the Egyptian god Ra. It was Set who protected Ra, and again, who was the sun, as he journeyed through the underworld. Because every time Ra had to journey at sunset, Ra has to go into the underworld and battle Apep, which is the chaotic snake, for those who understand the lingo. So Ra decided the only person who could face Apep was Set or Sutek. So Sutek was the protector or the guardian of Ra in the underworld. That was his original attribute before he was associated with all this stuff that we know him to be associated with now. See, most people don't even know about that now. They connect him more with the devil or, doing some malicious things. But originally, he was the protector. He was the elder, because Set or Sutek is also older than Osiris, which explains why he killed Osiris, because he felt that he was the rightful king of Egypt. And the only way for him to be the rightful king, he had to get rid of the adversary. So even the current story has a lot of alchemy within it, because you can say a lot of people feel that way. A lot of people feel a newer race has taken over the world. A newer race, not the people who was here in the beginning. A newer race that was created by man took over the world. So now they made their rules and regulations and expect you to abide by them. And you're looking at the situation like, I predate you. Who are you to implement rules on my life? When I've been here, my ancestors have been here. You were, I've been here. We've been here. So it's in America between the races and the parties, red, blue, all this. The tension comes from that. Everybody knows what the history of America is. It's not a secret. And because everybody knows all the things that well, I guess you should know, but there's various dimensions of it, right? Because we know that, it creates an environment where people can't come together. It's impossible to come together when you know the history of the country. It's impossible, which is why it hasn't happened. It's not going to happen. Which is why there's guns here. Which is why so much death and murder here. Which is why this is the most heaviest location on the face of the planet because of all of these dynamics. Nonetheless, this is why alchemy is the only thing that frees you. Because it's not about getting a good job. Let's just say you do get a good job, but the direction of the company, you may not agree with it. See, this is a thing that nobody really wants to talk about, but most people accept it. Where we grew up thinking we need to get a good job to be successful. It was never told to us that what if this so called good job was destroying your community? Not physically, but mentally. Because the ideologies that they push is opposite to nature. They pay you well, though. They pay you well. You live a good life. But the intentions take you further and further away from your culture. You get paid pretty good, though. But at what cost? What is the cost? And are you willing to pay for it? And that's why, if we want to be honest here, there's no point of BSing, right? If we want to be honest, this is why these dynamics are the way they are. Because you have people working for companies that do nothing for them or their communities, but they pay them well. Companies pay well, but they do nothing for you or the people that you love, other than give you a check. But that check comes at a cost. As I just said, it takes you further and further away from your culture. Because how can you learn your culture there and they don't know it? Or they do know it and they keep you away from it. However, the justification of this is keep your lights on, keep your bills paid, keep your kids fed at any cost. That's the mentality here. At any cost, make sure that you can support yourself and those who need you at any cost. And majority of people, that's where we are. So it don't matter if you're selling drugs, if you're, again, it ain't about